live here in WhatsUp Doc, also streaming in Global TV Network, and also in Good People TV. This is your Diet Doctora, Dr. Josephine Grace Chua Rojo, Dr. Grace, Dr. Rojo, whatever you want. So today we are going to entertain questions, anything about low carb nutrition. So people are usually asking what is really low carb and what comprises low carb. So it is somewhat like a common sense that with low carb, of course, it is low in carbohydrates, but not known to all, carbohydrates has many types. It has fiber, sugar, and starch, okay? So whenever we say sugar, it will pertain to simple monosaccharide. So it's not just sugar. It could also be fructose. Okay, so fructose is the sugar coming from fruits, or it could also be lactose or the sugar coming from milk. Also galactose, still some kind of sugar that's coming from milk. And we have glucose, of course, and there are so many other types of simple sugars like dextrose and all of that. So as much as possible, we would try to avoid that. Why? Because they are now seen to increase your insulin resistance in the body. So with insulin resistance, you can have problems like diabetes, like high blood pressure, and so many more. So, but with low carb, we are not just avoiding sugar, but we are also avoiding starch if ever you still need to heal. So what are those starch? Because for others, they are just concerned of the sweet ones, the sugar ones, like the ones in our table sugar. But they are not aware that they're actually consuming more than what is necessary for us in that total net carbs alone. So net carbs is the amount of carbohydrates maybe coming from starch or sugar or fructose or lactose that can actually have an effect on your total blood sugar in the body. So that is what is important when it comes to net carbs. You have to identify that. And yes, although starch like rice, oatmeal, wheat bread, corn, root crops like potato, sweet potato. We also have cassava. So all of those are starchy foods. And not known to all, those starchy foods are actually complex carbohydrates. But the moment they are broken down, the moment we ingest them and our body digests them and we absorb it, the moment it reaches our blood, they are now transformed into simple forms, which is glucose. And that glucose is equivalent to still sugar. It's like blood sugar. So your body will not be able to differentiate between glucose coming from table sugar, from brown sugar, from rice, from bread, from potatoes, from corn chips, or whichever source of carbohydrates that you have. Even vegetables, like say for example, a kilo of cabbage will have around 30 grams, 30 grams of net carbs or sugar. Okay? But that's of course too little. Say for example, as compared to a kilo of rice, a kilo of rice will have almost like more than half of that will be made of sugar. That's like 500 milligrams of that, or half a kilo of that is actually transformed into basic sugar. Say, for example, as compared to a kilo of cabbage or greens or lettuce, so that's only 30 grams because per 100 gram is only about 2 to 3 grams of net carbs for green leafy vegetables, but it is usually more than half for starchy foods, including those root crops, especially breads and rice. So recently we've made a post about potato and those who love potato, but also, of course, we should be cautious. That's why they are in our caution list because those foods are not to be taken unlimited style, buffet style. You have to be aware whenever you take them, or else you might overdo eating them. And especially for those who still need to heal, those who still need to lose weight, control their blood sugar, control their blood pressure, those who are looking into reversing their fatty liver, their PCOS, those who are TTC. I just learned that recently. So TTC is trying to conceive. for those who are trying to conceive. So if you've been on perpetual autumn, so we say perpetual autumn because if we've been on a diet that is mostly high in fats and high in carbohydrates, so you've actually been piling up energy in the form of fats, sometimes in the form of misfolded proteins in our brain, sometimes in the form of extra proteins like tumors and masses in our body. Sometimes they can be in the form of inflammation. So if you've been on perpetual autumn, so your body is actually already very ready in time for winter. But since we are in a two-season country, we can say that we've been in a perpetual harvest season and our body has been looking for ways to experience fasting season or non-harvest season in order for us to give the opportunity for our body to shed off those extra energy, weight, fats that's been in our system for quite a long time. Okay, so if we haven't experienced or haven't practiced fasting for so long, so most likely we have been on perpetual autumn, and that's also the reason why we are actually experiencing a lot of problems as well when it comes to our metabolic condition. So we will discuss if you have questions, what kind of foods are necessary, anything about low carb nutrition. Just send your questions here, type it in the comment section so that we can read it. For now, I would like to say hi to Annabelle, hi Park Shen, Zirma, Kinako, Gilbert Salvador, hello, Sir Romeo. So many participants here, actually participants as well in our LCF or low carb and fasting masterclass. So thank you so much for being here always. Elizabeth Lim, good evening. Lons, Yu Kishimoto, hello. Mary Joy Figueroa, watching from Bacolod. Wow, just here. So we have Elizabeth Escobar, David Reshock from Mandaluyong, Evangeline, Wilma, MJ, Rosemary from Milan, Italy. Hello, thank you so much for always being here. Arjine, tagging Christine, Mary Grace, OMG, latecomer. It's okay. We've just finished our introduction. So I'm actually here in my cycling desk. So where I do my stationary bike and at the same time it has a desk for a laptop so that I can maximize this time of being with you through this live episode and at the same time moving my legs because in the clinic I'm mostly sitting all day. So it's good to have this move a little. So Mera Alberto, good evening. Doc Nerissa Sanchez, good evening, Doc. Eileen Jong, watching from South Korea. Indajin Garutay from Hong Kong, of course. I know that. Iris, pwede po bang magtanong? 4'11", height, 25 years old. So you can just check it in the internet with your BMI. So with 4'11", you should not go over 50 kilograms if you don't want to be overweight. Lauro Go, thank you sa pag-refer sa amin kay Dr. Espirito. My pleasure. Dr. Espirito is one of my closest friends in med school. So there was actually a time that people thought we're twins because we are of the same height and somewhat Asian faces. So she's a very good friend of mine. Thank you, Pastor Lauro. And Max Page, tagging Sir Bambino Guerrero. Luz Grabador Santos, good evening from Bulacan. Rowena Edica, good evening po. Good evening from Davao City. And Kim Poy Palaboy, Alicia. And we have Richelle Pagaduan Domingo, Marisa Marcelino. And we have Azde or Forteza. Ceslin. Yes, Chana Zaragoza. Ella Marie Luz. Jarvix, Doc. Hello, Doc. Good evening po sa inyo ni Doc Vin and Doc Vic. Hope to see you soon. So, Vin Vic Legaspi, MD. Davao po, Doc, na? I hope to visit soon. Natasha La Inso, San Diego. Good evening. Arvile. Hello po, Doc. How about agar-agar? Okay lang po ba yun sa LC? Agar-agar is the same as gulaman? Is that right, Maming? You know what's agar-agar? Agar-agar is gulaman. Let's see. Agar-agar. Basta di common sa kitchen namin, hindi kami sure. Agar-agar, yeah. Plant-based gelatin derived from seaweed. Okay, so as long as it's not flavored, plain, usually it's good under low carb. So there are brands that are of the lowest calorie content. As long as yung mga hindi flavored, not flavored, and no sugar added. Okay? So that's why we actually have a lot of recipes in Life Without Rice using plain gelatin. So we use it in Maha Blanca, low carb Maha Blanca. We also have low carb gelatins, Window Cathedral, and all of those. So, Azilet, Doc, for someone na obese, takot daw siya mag-take ng salt pag nag-start siya ng low carb kasi nag-UTI daw po siya pag nakaka-consume ng mataas na salt content. May connection po ba yun? So, actually, it doesn't have connection. But if he or she has an experience of getting UTI after an increased salt intake, if it's regular, maybe she should have his kidneys checked. But certainly, UTI is different. UTI is an infection of the urinary tract, whereas salt, if ever it will have some kind of degree with involvement with your kidneys, it's mostly about dehydration. So whenever you take salt, you should have ample amount of water. Same way, if you've been drinking a lot of water, you should also take ample amount or enough electrolytes for that. Otherwise, taking so much water without electrolytes can lead to hypomagnesemia, hyponatremia, hypokalemia. In other words, it's just low in sodium, low in potassium, and low in magnesium in the body. So it's important to make sure whenever you take water, especially if you are fond of drinking a lot of water, you make sure you are taking enough electrolytes as well. Okay? Otherwise, those UTI could be different, or it could be related to dehydration or very, very small kinds of urine if there was that time. But for that, especially that obesity is now considered as a medical condition, a proper consultation is advised if you want to be properly guided. You can be a part of low carb nutrition, low carb feasting and fasting community. It's our Facebook group, an adjunct together with Life Without Rice. You can ask there. If you are looking for doctors, we have low carb doctors practicing all over the Philippines now. There is already a growing number. So we can check who is near you and who is available to attend to you, even if just online consultation. Nina de la Cruz, hello. Milet Aksaban, hi. Stephanie Christy Perenio. Doktora, nahihil po ba ang LC Graves disease? So Graves disease, for those who do not know it, is just a condition of the thyroid gland. So it's like a disease of the thyroid gland where it destroys the thyroid gland and it usually results in hyperthyroidism. So it's hyper functioning when it comes to thyroid. So the first thing that we need to understand when it comes to thyroid problem is that it occurs because of poor or improper nutrition that's been taken for so long. Okay? So doing a low carb diet can help, but most importantly, it should be a nutrient dense low carb nutrition. So what do we mean by nutrient dense? If you're afraid to doing low carb, it's okay. You don't even need to think really that it's low carb. But first and foremost, you have to understand. You have to ask per meal if it's nutritious or not nutritious. Do you think rice is nutritious? Of course not. It doesn't have much nutrients except for a little fiber and it's full of glucose. It's just sugar in complex form. So that's already out. How about candies? Of course, that doesn't have any nutrition. Sugar is no longer considered as nutrition, especially if you're taking them in excess. What else? We have desserts, all those chocolates, all those cakes. Those doesn't have any nutrition. So what are the foods that we think as nutrient dense? Those are the foods that are rich in vitamins, minerals, and electrolytes. So what are those foods? So it could be animal products, meat, it could be seafood, it could be vegetables and fruits. And among them, if you want to maximize the effect, you better try to make sure that the effect is also necessarily not increasing your carbohydrates. Okay, so give me 1 minute. I'm going to check something. Okay, we're back. So I hope you were able to grasp that. So the more nutrient dense the foods and with the least amount of sugar in it. So I think for me, that's one of the best options, especially for those who are already sick and need some kind of recovering. Okay. Hello, Mama Lou. Always happy to see you. And Fe O Pagaran. Like, is low carb good for Hepa B reactive? So Hepa B, hepatitis, it's mostly coming from infection of the virus. It's actually a viral infection that's attacking in the liver. So viral hepatitis, especially type B, is considered as chronic, meaning it cannot be really cured as of this moment, but it can be contained. You might be positive with hepatitis B, but you don't need to suffer liver failure, especially if you protect your liver. So one way to protect your liver is to eat the right foods only at the right time. No need to overeat. So whether it's low carb or not low carb, just eat the right amount. And most especially if you want to be on the healthier side, since high carb foods like fruits, like sweets, all of those are very, very inflammatory and can cause even more problems for your liver. So if you want to protect your liver, try to eat foods that are not toxic to your liver in the first place. So number one would be removal of alcohol. Okay, so alcohol is toxic. It's like poison to your liver and also to your brain. So if you want to make sure that your liver will be kept well, so try to avoid that, especially that with hepatitis, the problem there is chronic inflammation, damage, and repair that eventually can lead into cirrhosis. And that liver cirrhosis can even lead into cancer, although with hepatitis, the more common one associated with liver cancer is hepatitis C. But don't let that hepatitis make you disabled, okay? And make you just depend on whatever you have. I know people who are living well and controlling all of their symptoms, their blood values, their liver enzymes, SGPT, SGOT, are even way better as compared to those without hepatitis B because they are practicing a very good and healthy lifestyle. That is incorporating low carb nutrition, that is just intermittent fasting, and of course, choosing the types of low carb. Okay, not just because it's low carb, it's already safe. So, say for example, if you eat, say for example, almond bread. So almond bread usually is made up of yeast. Some will use yeast, some will use egg, some will not use egg, and mostly just purely almond flour. Okay, so almond flour is actually already a ground almond without the milk in it, so it will become dry and powder form. So it's mostly just fiber and some nutrients, of course, of almonds. But of course, it doesn't have all the complete nutrients that we need. So B vitamins, we have all the other A, D, E, and C. Okay, so there are a spectrum of vitamins and minerals that we need. So you have to make sure that you are not hurting your liver even more. Okay, so Marimel, hello. Ailel, Ragandang, how about yogurt? Can we take it instead of rice? Is it okay? I am not sure how you're able to think of replacing rice with yogurt. Mm, because usually, although it's okay, there's nothing wrong about that. Although in general, people who are looking for replacement of rice will look for something of similar texture, perhaps, or similar consistency. So yogurt for me is like an alternative for something like dessert maybe, or some you can use it for your creams, for your milk instead, all those. But yes, yogurt as long as it's plain, unflavored, and if you can make your own make sure that it's really low in sugar, then of course it's okay. So yes, Rosario Pedregosa, watching from Australia. Hello. I just recently met with one of the coolest person in Australia who is practicing low carb as well and more on general nutrition. So his name is Marty Kendall. I'll introduce you to him next week, next Monday. He will become my guest. Okay, so I hope you get to meet him. He's really, really good. So Chana Zaragoza, electrolytes is okay to drink supplements every day. How much is enough or too much? So it will be depend from person to person. But generally, general recommendations, magnesium is about 400 to 600 milligrams. We have salt of 1,500 milligrams as the minimum. We also have potassium of 4,500 milligrams. But you don't need to take them all as supplements because as much as possible, we want to take them from real food. So for example, potassium, you can get them from green leafy vegetables. Okay. Your magnesium, you can get them from nuts. Okay. Although seldom you can really take magnesium from everyday food as much as possible. So you can, yes, take some supplements, even just in low dose. Avocado, half avocado can already give you around 800 milligrams of potassium. So one whole avocado is already about 1,600. Okay, so all that. And sodium, of course, sodium chloride, that's just from our salt. So that's also a very important. So Fe, J. De La Cruz, hello. Nasima, J. Ann from Digo City, Davao del Sur. Dennis, hello Sir Dennis. Hello po, together with the wife, the beautiful and amazing wife. Get well soon po kayong lahat. Shelly, Dirma, Oyster, Doc, I have UTI po. Paano po yung pag-consume ng salt? Mabilis po ako magkaroon ng UTI. So, okay. So, UTI is urinary tract infection. Okay. So, it can have many symptoms. A real UTI is diagnosed if you can really see that there's really, like, say, for example, a bacteria in urine or white blood cells or pus in your urine. But if you think you just have dysuria or difficulty urinating, so that could be a partly symptom of UTI, but it's not exclusive to UTI. Okay, so it could just be irritation. So dysuria is just pain upon urinating, or there's also urinary urgency. So you always feel like you're in a hurry. Or there's also urinary incontinence, meaning you can't hold your urine. So sometimes for laymen, for patients and regular people, they all thought that's UTI. But UTI by its name is urinary tract infection. It's just, but most probably you are referring to the symptoms and you just refer to it with UTI. But with salt intake, it's not really directly a cause of UTI, but what it can give you possibly is dehydration. And once you are dehydrated because you have been taking a lot of salt, not in proportion with the right amount of water, then maybe you're having very, very little urine or what we call as urinary dribbling. So it's like drips. Okay. So that's not good. So you have to make sure you are taking enough and ample amounts of water as well. Okay. But if you're overdoing your salt release, then you need to cut down. Salt is important, but anything too much is also not good. So better make sure you take it in moderation. Just a teaspoon of salt at minimum in a day. That's already most of us can already get enough of it, especially that most of our foods, no matter what type of that, it's usually with a little salt already. Okay. Diana Grace, good evening. Thank you for sharing your LC diet. Angelica, my husband had started LIF but still on high carb po. Para di po mabigla. I wasn't able to read the whole. Nice. Running. Why? So, later na lang. Anna Ferrer, good evening. Lizelle from Switzerland. I'm happy to inform you both my parents are starting in the low carb diet. I think for a week now. Wow, congratulations. Oh, you already have coaching clients. Of course, I'm so proud of you in the JGRT. So Lish Villata, hello. Maraming salamat po. Arvele, welcome. Anna Ferrer, thank you so much. Manzano Precious, is it safe to switch to low carb without gallbladder na operated po 2018? Kasi low fat kasi yung suggested diet. So usually, you cannot go into high fat directly, okay? Because your body is so used to not having to have gallbladder as a storage form of your bile. But once you are already adapted, slowly you can slowly increase your fat intake, and then your body will eventually just adjust. So before, the difference now is before, when you still have a gallbladder, the whenever you ate something fatty, your body will just get the stored bile from your gallbladder in order for you to absorb it. But now, if you no longer have gallbladder, your bile that is necessary for fat absorption will now flow directly from your liver straight to your small intestines. Okay? So if you are not used to eating high carb, so at first you will have episodes of steatorrhea. So steatorrhea is pooping with lipids and oil in it. Okay, so I know that sounds gross. Sorry for those who are eating, but for those who are already getting used to it slowly, it will not happen. It will. I already know a lot of people. My mom, as one of those who had their gallbladder removed. And in fact, my mom got her gallbladder removed just last year, just end of this year, just around December 26th. So around Christmas season. And then I think by February, she was already eating fatty foods, but most importantly, the healthy ones. Because if you don't take anything, any fats, especially the essential ones, omega-3, okay, fish oils, the healthy oils, okay, and some degree of good fats like coconut oil, then you might be missing more. Because for truth be told, developed why you develop gallbladder stone in the first place, why you why your gallbladder was surgically removed. It's also because of your previous lifestyle, which is mostly high in carbohydrates, regardless of fat intake. Okay? So it's mostly the driving force really is high in carbohydrates. Yes, others will have high in fats as well. So those actually is what we refer to as autumn kind of feeding, eating both high fats and high in carbohydrates. And those combination is something that we would like to avoid because that could be the deadliest combination of all. Okay, so Gisela Rosales Arroyo, hello. When I see sample LC foods posted, I think I'm eating more. How can we measure intake of local LC food during feasting window? So of course, you can know it if you will study about calorie counting, but actually we don't really recommend that. By experience, we now see that overeating is actually not really a function of hunger, but mostly it's absence of specific nutrients. So if you are overeating, try to make sure first if what you were eating is really nutrient dense. Because if you are eating foods that are high in nutrients, vitamin B, C, B1, B2, B3, okay, B6, B9, B12, it's high in vitamin D, vitamin K, vitamin A, all of that, especially the electrolytes, magnesium, potassium, sodium, also the other trace minerals, which would include who's that? So which would include selenium, zinc, and all of those. So if you lack those kinds of foods, then it can lead to hunger, triggered eating, and eventually overeating. So if you want to eat well, better eat the right food. So try to avoid first the goodies, all those breads, all those types of food that are considered as treats, because sometimes, as much as they are actually low carb, but they're also not that nutritious. So sorry to say. So of course, I still eat those treats from time to time. I even cook low carb breads almost 2, 3, 4 times a week. We even eat low carb pancakes. But we understand that eating those is maybe non-insulin spiking, meaning it won't increase our sugar, our insulin in the body, but also it's not that helpful when it comes to nutrient balance in our body. Low carb, removing the sugar, removing the carbohydrates is just the first steps of healing. But after you shed off those weight, and if you want to really improve your health overall, you really have to step up and get to know what are the real foods that are actually nutrient dense. So we have a food list. That's why we have it on safe, caution, and danger list. And for nutrient dense, those actually are the ones in the safe list. So you can have all the green leafy vegetables, most vegetables growing above ground. Also, the more organic, the more free range or the meats are, less chemicals, less whatever. So all of those are really, really important. So I hope you can get to check that so that you will be guided as well. And your appetite will also be corrected. Okay? So Normie, and if you want to know more, I hope it's actually discussed in our LCF masterclass. And it's a long topic. So I'm so sorry we cannot do that here. LCF masterclass runs 6 hours every Saturday. So that's basically full 24 hours of very heavy. The participants here know how it was with LCF masterclass. If you want to know, I hope you can join our next masterclass since it's already ending. We are already having our last day this coming Saturday, May 1. And we are so happy and grateful for the outcome and the response. And of course, the feedback coming from our participants. So I hope you can learn more. So Normie Sobrepena, good evening. Erlin Lazaro. My husband has DM and cardiomyopathy. I would like to see endo. New endo and cardio who believes in LC diet. Would like to ask if you can refer us. Sana, we live in Manila po. So currently, there's only a few doctors who are practicing low carb nutrition here in the Philippines. We are glad to inform you that our our masterclass actually had 13 doctors who enrolled. So that's quite a number. In here, I don't know if there's anybody who are endo and cardio, but with LCF masterclass and with the doctors actually, we are being trained to be knowledgeable with how nutrition affects all of our organ systems. However, I'm so sorry. I think we have to cut this episode short because I wasn't able to bring my charger. So I'm only 6 minutes, 5 minutes remaining for my battery life. I'm so sorry. We have to cut this, but don't worry. We still have another episode this coming Wednesday for still live Q&A. Okay, and we have MWF Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays Q&A for those who wish to know more. So I would like to see. True, cabbage can cause arthritis. Yes, partly because it's high in oxalates. So get to know about oxalates if you want to really avoid that. There are people who are sensitive to oxalates, so it can really cause joint pains. Okay, so cabbage, super green leafy vegetables, nuts, cacao, those are high in oxalates that are low carb but high in oxalates. How about fatty liver? Okay lang po ba high fats intake? As long as it's the good kinds of fats and as long as low carb yung kapares. High fat, high carb, no. It's the carbohydrates. You have to understand that it's the carbohydrates that will drive those fats to be formed as fats in the first place. Okay? So we still have 4 minutes left before our laptop dies. So Del Panganiban, Doc, my IgM result is 2.59, started ATF. Okay lang po ba? What's the reference range? Each laboratory will have different reference range, so you have to check. 2.59, I don't know what measurements are you using there. Millimoles, micrograms, milligrams per DL, grams per liter, what? So it has to be fair. Marisa Marcelino, Doc, yung brother ko, need niya mag-angioplasty but don't have enough money. That's why puro meds lang ngayon. Diabetic din po sila ng ate ko. I'm convincing them to do LCIFs too. And it should be guided well because it's hard to start low carb IF without proper guidance, especially with a low carb practitioner who is knowledgeable when it comes to weaning them or how to adjust meds accordingly so that it will still be safe. Okay, so I can refer you to many doctors who are practicing. Currently, I'm fully booked. So I can refer you to Dr. Suzette Encarnado, also Dr. Fee Atencio, and her husband actually is also an internist and can also help you with that. Okay. Carla Amis, now sedentary lifestyle, former martial artist, overweight but still have muscles, suddenly got edema on the foot. Knee pain, ano po kayo, cause? Oh, so because of that, your body was so used to a very highly active lifestyle, and now your body can no longer compensate because maybe you've changed your degree of physical activity, but you actually didn't change your food intake, especially on carbs. So before, if you are physically active, you can have some sort of leeway. You can get away from little carbs. But the moment you